Oh, hi there, person on YouTube. Look, I'm there in the gardens there. Can you see those gardens? Those are the gardens of Winston Churchill's country mansion, Chartwell. And I've got a question for you about Winston Churchill. Did you know that Winston Churchill had a dream? I mean, everyone has dreams. Well, most people. But he had a dream that he sort of thought about quite a lot, and then he wrote it down, his dream, in a piece of writing called The Dream. And he wrote it in his country mansion, Chartwell. That's Chartwell there. So what was Winston Churchill's dream about? Was it like Martin Luther King's dream? Was it about racial equality? No. Winston Churchill's dream was about a big war, World War III, between the East and the West. So that's the dream. And I thought I'd make this video and tell you about Winston Churchill's dream. And I'm going to tell you 5 things I think you need to know to understand his dream, really, including his views about Iran and some of his foreign policy in Iran. Now, before we start, you might want to know who I am, do you? Well, anyway, hello, I'm Suze. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Thanks for being here. And in all my videos, like sort of trying to take you around and show you somewhere. And today I'm going to be showing you around, I think I've already said, Chartwell, Winston Country's country mansion, which I also have a connection to, which I will tell you about at the end. But anyway, I think it's time to go now to Chartwell. So let's go. I'm going to say let's go. I went ages ago. But let's go together now, my YouTube friend. Are we friends? So to visit Chartwell, we have to go to the beautiful English countryside in a county called Kent. This is Kent. It's known as the Garden of England, very beautiful. So, the first thing that greets you as you arrive at Chartwell is the car park. And I'm assuming there wasn't such a big car park when Winston Churchill lived here. But something it's perhaps worth me saying before we start is Chartwell was Winston Churchill's country house. He also had a house in London. But it is now owned by the nation, by an organisation called the National Trust. Hence, me, can now go in. So let's do that now. And the first of the things that I think you need to know is something about Winston Churchill's childhood, because his dream features the ghost of his father. So as we are walking around Chartwell, it is a big house, but Winston Churchill was born in an even bigger house. He was born in a palace, Blenheim Palace. He was from the Spencer family, as was Princess Diana. They were distantly related. But his dad was somebody called Lord Randolph. He was an MP. His mum was called Jenny Jerome. She was American, so he was half American. But his mum doesn't feature in his dream. Now, although he was born into the aristocracy, he had quite a difficult childhood, really, because he was sent away aged 7 to public school. Now, in case you're not familiar, public school doesn't mean a real school for the public. It's a school for kind of the aristocracy to go and learn to rule over the general public. So he went at age 7. It's a boarding, so it's quite young, isn't it, to be sent off from your parents. And he wrote to his parents a lot. 76 times, I read. And they wrote back how many times? Just 6. Not so many. I mean, I've had relationships where the WhatsApp ratio is quite similar, where I've sent lots of messages, haven't always been returned. But it's not good, is it, that ratio? That we can all agree. And also, he didn't do very well at school, so he quite disappointed his dad. And he really looked up to his dad. His dad died when he was quite young. His dad died after contracting syphilis from a chambermaid at Blenheim Palace. Now, you don't catch syphilis like you catch coronavirus. There are some questions there. But let's not ask those questions here. Let's just get back to this point, really. But that is the first thing I think you need to know. So Winston Churchill had a distant relationship with his dad, who died when he was very young. Well, quite young, 20. So we've walked past a swan, we've walked past a swimming pool, and we're now coming up to the exhibition. I'm assuming there wasn't an exhibition when Winston Churchill was living there, but there is now, because we can go in and visit it. So let's go into the exhibition. And I want to tell you the second thing I think you need to know, which is that Winston Churchill was obsessed with war. Now, there's a quote there in the exhibition, which, can you read? Probably not, I'll read it out anyway. So the quote that he said was, from very early youth, I'd brooded about soldiers and war. Don't know how you feel about that, if you're broody for soldiers and war. I'm a woman in my 40s, so I'm broody for a cat, or many cats. Not so much soldiers and war, but he wasn't just interested in war. He was involved in fighting quite a few wars as well. So he fought in several wars, including the Boer Wars, the Madras Wars in Sudan, and some colonial wars on the northwest frontier of India. All of this was before World War II, which he's best known for in England. So that's the second thing I need to know, that Winston Churchill was very, very into and obsessed with war, as he admits. But it's not all war, and the exhibition and Chartwell are kind of a place where he did his other hobbies, like he liked gardening, he liked painting, he liked writing. So there's a lovely quote there on the wall there, which is, go out into the sunlight and be happy with what you see. That's a lovely quote. So let's go out into the sunlight. I mean, I say the sunlight, into the sort of slightly overcast weather of England. And I want to tell you about Winston Churchill's dream. So the dream that he wrote is partly fictional, partly personal, partly historical. A bit like reading the British tabloids. Now, he wrote the dream actually after World War II. His party, and therefore himself, were voted out of office after World War II. So he had a bit more time on his hands to do writing and things. And it's set in the artist studio. That's the artist studio over there. So let's sort of wander down to the artist studio. And I'll just describe the dream. So Winston Churchill's in his artist studio painting a portrait of his father, or copying a portrait of his father, when, alas, before him, his father appears, his dad appears. But his dad had died many years before, so this is a ghost. Now, I don't know if you have any dead relatives, if they appeared before you in a dream, what you'd want to talk about with them. What did Winston Churchill want to talk about with his dad? I've already given you a clue, war. And they talk about World War I and World War II. And Winston Churchill's dad has sort of died before both these wars. This is kind of news to him. And his dad is becoming quite impressed with his analysis of politics. And then Winston Churchill tells him about his views of the future, which is another war. So I'll read out what he says. He says, it may well be that an even worse war is drawing near. A war of the East against the West. A war of liberal civilization against the Mongol hordes. And his dad, as I said, was quite impressed with this analysis and kind of compliments him, saying, oh, you should have gone into politics. Which is kind of a joke because Winston Churchill did go into politics, but his dad didn't know that because he's dead. He's a ghost. So I don't know what you think about this dream. I maybe haven't told you enough about it for you to really get your teeth into it, but I hope we've given you a sort of vague idea of what it's about. War. And that was the third thing I think you need to know. That Winston Churchill had a dream where he conversed with his dead dad, the ghost of his dad, about war. And you can read it yourself if you'd like to. But what I'd like to do now is take you up and show you inside the house, because we're at Chartwell. Haven't been in the house yet, have we? So let's go up and have a look inside the house. Let's go up to the door there. So there we go, there's the door. Let's knock on the door. And it's not going to open because actually when I went, the door and the house were closed. They are open to the public, but not on the day that I went. I could have checked. But what I want to do, though, is tell you about the fourth thing I think you need to know, which is about his role in Iran. So if we were in the house, instead of just looking at the doors of the house, which are very nice doors, I must say. But anyway, inside the doors, there is a carpet in the house, which was given to Winston Churchill by the Shah of Iran as a birthday present. Now, as I've already said, Winston Churchill liked writing, and people say he liked democracy. So here is a quote about Iran and democracy. I'll read it out for you. The quote is, "There is no better way to govern Iran than democracy and social justice." Now that quote isn't on the walls anywhere at Chartwell because it wasn't actually written by Winston Churchill. It was written by the democratic leader of Iran, Mohammad Mossadegh, who was democratic leader of Iran in the 1950s. Now, what did Winston Churchill think of this leader of Iran? Well, possibly not very much because he overthrew him in a military coup. I say he did, not single-handedly. England and the MI6 overthrew this democracy with America, the CIA, in a military coup. And just as we're kind of locked out of the house, information about this incident was very much kept locked up, really. Now, there's quite a lot more to say about this incident. I've got a longer video about it, or there's a great documentary called Coup 53. You could really watch that. But this is the fourth thing I think you need to know, is that Winston Churchill overthrew the democratically elected leader of Iran in a military coup. And this happened, by the way, in the 1950s. So it's after he wrote The Dream, he was out of office, and he got back into office again. He was Prime Minister for a second term. Now, before I tell you the fifth thing I think you need to know, I actually want to tell you something that you don't necessarily need to know, but maybe might want to know, which is, I said I had some connection to Chartwell. Well, it's got something to do with my dad, actually. And the thing is, my dad was Winston Churchill. No, that's not true. That's a joke. Not funny. But basically, when my dad died, we decided to scatter his ashes at Chartwell. And not only that, we actually bought a memorial bench, or gave some money towards a memorial bench at Chartwell. Now, you may have questions about that. I have questions about it as well. My dad, by the way, didn't ask for this. He didn't specify where he wanted to be buried or have his ashes scattered. So perhaps if you're watching this, do specify, do tell your relatives what you want to be done. But I thought I'd take you and show you the memorial bench that we donated money to for my dad. So let's go round to the Rose Garden, actually, and I'll show you this bench. So this is where the bench is, or was, because there's actually no bench there. I just phoned them up, actually, and asked them, where's the bench? And As it happens, we misunderstood. I thought we were buying a memorial bench to my dad, but we were just giving some money for the upkeep of a bench for some period of time. Bench is gone now. I think there's another bench there, but not the same bench. But anyway, let's take a metaphorical seat on the memorial bench, which isn't there, and tell you the fifth thing I think you need to know. Now, the fifth thing I think you need to know is there are loads more things to know about Winston Churchill. What's almost surprising is how little most British people, and I include myself in this really, know about him, because the only thing that I really knew growing up was about his role in World War II. And in this video I focused on his dream and his role in Iran because it seemed quite relevant to today. But lots of other very relevant things too, like his role in Palestine in the 1920s. I've got another video about that. Or like the Bengal famine, or his role in the torture camps in Kenya. Now, if you don't know about some of these things I'm referring to now, perhaps it might be good for you to have a look at what happened there. But anyway, but that is the fifth thing I think you need to know. There are loads more other things to know about Winston Churchill. But this video is focused on Winston Churchill's dream. And something else that we can't really know about his dream, but maybe it's worth asking the question, is that do you think Winston Churchill somehow sort of predicted the future, well, our present, but his future, when he wrote about this war between the East and the West? Well, probably not really, because when he was writing, the East was very much tied up with the idea of communism. If anything, rather than predict the future, our present, I think he may have done more to cause where we are now, because he did things like, as I mentioned in this video, overthrow democracy in Iran. But I made this video because I think if we understand the past a bit better, then we might be able to walk towards a future that's more peaceful than that set out in Winston Churchill's dream. And there is, by the way, a dove, the symbol of peace, buried in the centre of the rose garden there. You might be able to read the inscription, "Here lies the barley dove." And that's there because apparently it was given to Lady Clementine when she went on an expedition to capture a Komodo dragon for the London Zoo. Now, a Komodo dragon isn't mythical, it's a literal thing, it's a lizard, big lizard. And you may have questions about why Lady Clementine went on an expedition to capture a Komodo dragon, a big lizard, for the London Zoo. But I think we've asked enough questions for this video, leave those for now, and focus on there being a dove buried there, and on peace. And by the way, Chartwell is a really peaceful place, and I still really love it, and I would say go and visit if you'd like to. It's something that you'd like to do. It has got beautiful gardens. It's got a bookshop as well, actually. A second-hand bookshop. And they also sell some of the produce from the gardens, like you could buy pumpkins when I was there. I was there a while ago. But there is actually one more place I'd like to show you. So let's leave Chartwell now. I'd like to show you the West Room, the nearest town. So this is West Room, which is the town where Chartwell is in. It's on the edge of the town. And given Winston Churchill's obsession with the East and the West, perhaps it's apt that he lives somewhere called Westerham, which literally means Westerly Homestead or Western Village. It's in West Kent. And it's a lovely town, actually. I wandered around. It's got a couple of pubs, it's got an Indian restaurant, got a dentist, that might surprise you. Now, I was a bit nervous about making this video because people have got very strong views about Winston Churchill, it seems. He's been voted the greatest ever Brit. Although that was in a poll in 2002, and 500,000 people, or just under 500,000 people, voted for him in that poll. But in the same year, 4.5 million people voted for Will Young to be winner of Pop Idol. So, in some ways, Will Young got more votes than him. I don't know what your views on Winston Churchill are. My views on him have changed. So, rather than tell you my views, I thought I'd show you one more view in Westerham, because as I was walking around, I bumped into somebody called Henrietta, who was walking her three-legged cat. The cat's called Newt. Might be able to see the cat there. And Newt, the cat, kind of led us to a grave, which is not the grave of Winston Churchill. He's buried near Blenheim Palace, the family grave. But the grave that the cat is sort of sitting on is the gravestone of Grace Hamlin, who was the private secretary to the Churchills. She was apparently very loyal to the Churchills. And I thought this might be a good place to leave you, in a graveyard. Because this has been a video about Winston Churchill's dream, and it has perhaps been a bit about the ghosts of the past. His dad, but also kind of some historical British ghosts. So in this video about Winston Churchill's dream, I mean, I say it's his dream. Seems to me more like a bit of a nightmare, really. And he never actually called it a dream. The piece of writing is called The Dream because his family called it that. He just called it Private Article. So anyway, I will leave you here in this graveyard. Thanks so much to Henrietta and Newt, the cat, for showing me around. And thanks to all the people that make Chartwell such a beautiful place, all the gardeners. And thanks to you for watching. Thanks for that. See you later. I mean, I can't see you. Bye.